They say that blood is thicker than water. From the day you were born, you were handed one rule and told it was a law of nature. Family is everything. Family is the safety net. Family is forever, no matter what. And maybe you believed it. Maybe you still want to. But there is a certain kind of person who did not lose their family in one night. There was no single fight, no dramatic scene at a holiday dinner. The distance was built quietly. Over years, one unanswered message at a time, one birthday that passed without a call, one apology that never came. Today you are going to understand them, and if that person is you, you are going to finally have the words for what happened to you. Because walking away from your family was never betrayal. Psychologists are beginning to understand what it actually is, a survival response. Right now, across America and far beyond it, there is a silent epidemic. It does not make the news. It happens behind ordinary front doors, in towns where everyone still waves to each other. Adult children are making the agonizing decision to cut ties with their parents. Siblings drift into decades of silence. Grandchildren grow up knowing their grandparents only as names on a screen. Researchers who study families estimate that more than 1 in 4 American adults is now estranged from a close family member. 1 in 4? Look around any room, a classroom, an office, a wedding. Statistically, the quiet distance is everywhere, yet almost nobody talks about it. Because when someone says, "I don't speak to my mother anymore," the room goes cold. People lower their voices, they assume rebellion, they assume bitterness, they assume a monster must have made that choice. But the research tells a different story. Estrangement is rarely impulsive, it is usually the last stop after a very long road. Let's be precise about what estrangement is and what it is not. It is not one argument. Nobody goes no contact because of a single ruined Christmas. When researchers interview adult children who stepped away, they describe something that sounds less like a decision and more like a conclusion. A verdict reached slowly, after years of evidence. It is not coldness either. This is the part outsiders never understand. Most people who cut off contact describe the years afterward as grief, real grief, the kind with waves and anniversaries. They grieve a parent who is still alive. Psychologists call it ambiguous loss, losing someone who is still living. It is considered one of the hardest forms of loss a human can carry, precisely because there is no funeral, no closure, no permission to mourn, and it is not usually permanent by design. In one large study of estranged adult children, most said they had not closed the door forever. They left to save themselves, and many privately hoped the relationship could one day return in a safer form. So why do they go? 5 reasons come up again and again. The first reason: wounds that accumulate. Imagine a small cut, painful, but survivable. Now imagine one every week, in the same place, for 20 years. That is what growing up with a chronically critical parent feels like from the inside. The comment about your weight, the joke at your expense retold at every gathering, the grade that was never quite good enough. Each one survivable. Together, they become a climate. Relationship scientists have a name for this pattern in couples. Contempt and stonewalling erode a bond faster than any single explosion ever could. Family researchers find the same. Law holds at home. Children do not tally these moments consciously, but the nervous system records the mind refuses to read. By adulthood, contact itself has become the injury. A phone call is a countdown to the next cut. A visit costs 2 weeks of recovery, so the adult child does the arithmetic quietly, for years before anyone notices. Cutting contact in these cases is not anger. It is anesthesia. It is what the body chooses when every smaller boundary has failed. The second reason is harder to say out loud. What happened in childhood was worse than criticism. It was abuse. For a meaningful share of estranged adults, the story includes physical violence, sexual abuse, or the sustained terror of an unpredictable household. We will not dwell in details, but we will not skip the truth either, because these are the cases the room gets coldest about. Betrayal trauma researchers describe what happens when the very people responsible for protecting a child are the source of danger. The child cannot run, cannot protest, so the mind does something remarkable. It normalizes the horror to survive it. It calls fear, discipline, and chaos home, but the body keeps its own ledger. Decades later, a phone ringing with mom on the screen can trigger the same physiology as a threat. When those adults finally step away, they are not punishing the past. They are protecting the present, often while raising children of their own, breaking a chain that is generations old. If that was your story, leaving was not the wound. Leaving was the first act of tending it. The third reason, some children were cast in a role before they could speak. In many wounded families, roles get assigned like uniforms. There is the golden child, who can do no wrong and carries the family's pride like luggage. And there is the scapegoat, the one who absorbs every blame, every storm, every unspoken disappointment. Or the invisible child, whose job is simply to need nothing. Family systems, thinkers noticed decades ago that these roles are not personality. They are pressure valves. A family under stress needs somewhere to put the pressure, and children, being the least powerful members, become the container. Here is what makes this reason so cruel. The role follows you. You can move across the country, build a career, raise your own family, and one phone call drops you straight back into the costume. Within minutes, you are 12 years old again, defending yourself against charges you never understood. Some adult children finally realize the painful truth. The family does not miss them. The family misses the role. Going no contact is how they finally take the costume off. The fourth reason, every boundary was treated as a declaration of war. Most estranged adults did not start with cutting contact. They started small, the way every therapist recommends: please don't comment on my parenting. Don't bring up my ex at dinner. Call before you visit. Reasonable requests, modest fences. Then watch what happened next. The request was met with escalation. A boundary produced a guilt campaign. The guilt campaign escalated to the extended family. Aunts calling, cousins posting. Sometimes it went further. Surprise visits, financial pressure, threats framed as love. After everything we've done for you. Psychologists call the capacity to stay yourself under this pressure differentiation, the ability to hold your own beliefs inside a family system without being emotionally infection controlled by it. Low differentiation families experience a member's independence as abandonment. Your growth registers as their injury. So the adult child faces a brutal equation. Every step toward health is punished. The boundary is not the problem. The boundary proves the pattern. No contact then is the largest fence a person can build when every smaller one kept getting trampled. The fifth reason is the one that keeps them awake at night. Leaving a family means grieving people who are still alive, and grief like that has no map. There is no casseroles and flowers ritual for a living parent. No sympathy cards for a brother. You deleted. Society only knows how to comfort death. For the estranged, there is only silence. And the question nobody dares ask out loud: do you think you'll ever go back? Grief researcher Pauline Boss named this ambiguous loss mourning someone physically present but psychologically gone, or the reverse. Communication scholar Christina Sharp, who interviews estranged adult children, found they describe a loss that reinvents itself constantly. Grief on Mother's Day, grief at weddings, grief when a stranger says, "Call your mother." Why would anyone choose a pain like that? Because they measured it against the alternative. For them, staying meant dying slowly. Leaving meant grieving honestly instead. That is not coldness. That is the bravest accounting a human being can do. Now, here is the turn almost nobody expects. The research on estrangement is not a manual for cutting people off. Read it closely, and you find something quieter. Most adult children who leave do not actually want erasure. Christina Sharp's interviews surface it again and again. People go no contact to save the possibility of the relationship, the way you quarantine a fire so the house can someday be lived in again. In surveys, a majority of estranged adults report wanting reconciliation. Under specific conditions, acknowledgement of harm, changed behavior that holds, an apology that does not include the word "but." Family therapists see the same pattern from the other side. Reconciliation, when it happens, is rarely a warm movie reunion. It is slower and plainer, a parent who finally listens without defending. A new rhythm of contact that respects the fences that were built. Some relationships return as careful, smaller buildings, and that is allowed. Peace does not have to look like the past restored. So what do you actually do with all of this? If you are the one who walked away, hear this clearly. The goal now is not reconciliation, it is release. Release begins with dropping the trial you keep holding in your head, where you defend your decision to a jury that never rules. The evidence was weighed, the verdict was reached. You are allowed to stop re-arguing it. Self-compassion researcher Kristen Neff found that the sentence people need most is the one that treats their own pain like a friend's. Of course this hurts. Anyone who lost what I lost would hurt too. Grief for a living family is not disloyalty, it is proof you love them anyway, with nothing to show for it but wisdom. And know this, peace does not require reconciliation. You are allowed to heal without them. You are allowed to heal even if they never understand. And if you are the one who was left behind, the parent, the sibling, this part is yours. The door out is not words. Not, "I'm sorry you feel that way." Not explanations of your intentions. The research on repair points somewhere uncomfortable. Acknowledgement first. Not, "I did my best." But, "I understand that you were hurt in this home, and some of it was at my hands. I want to hear all of it." Then comes the hard part, changed behavior that holds over time. Not a holiday truce, but months of showing up differently. Respecting the boundaries you once fought without being asked twice. You cannot control whether the relationship returns, but you can make sure that if the door cracks open, what waits behind it is safe to walk into. Sometimes the most loving act available is to become someone worth coming back to. Blood is thicker than water, but blood is not a contract. Choosing distance from the family that raised you may be the loneliest, most misunderstood act of courage a person performs. It deserves neither applause nor judgment, only honesty. Sometimes the family we are born into cannot give us what we need to survive, and naming that truth is where every other kind of love becomes possible. To the ones who left, your worth was never decided at that table. To the ones who stayed, it is never too late to learn a new way to stand. You deserve to heal. Take care of yourself. Think Abias outro.